She killed him in 7 seconds. That was her record until tonight. The underground arena in Los Angeles reeked of blood and cheap liquor, the kind of place where money changed hands faster than lives ended. Spotlights carved through smoke and darkness, illuminating a cage 20 feet across. Inside, Kyra Ashran stood over what remained of her opponent, a cyborg warrior twice her size now crumpled against blood-slicked bars. His neck bent at an angle nature never intended. The killing blow had taken 4 seconds. 3 seconds to confirm he was dead. The crowd sat frozen. 2,000 spectators who'd paid fortunes to watch aliens tear each other apart suddenly found themselves unable to breathe. Even the bookmakers stopped counting their earnings. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Kyra lifted her head, slowly, silver hair, plastered to her face with sweat and someone else's blood. Her eyes' pupils that glowed faint amber in the harsh lights swept across the VIP boxes. Searching. Always searching. She'd killed in 17 arenas across 6 states, and every time she looked for the same face in the crowd. The broker. The man who'd orchestrated the destruction of her homeworld 8 years ago. The man who now controlled the largest alien trafficking network in North America. The man who thought himself untouchable. Her lips pulled back, exposing teeth. Not a smile, a promise. Handlers rushed the cage with shock prods and reinforced chains. They knew better than to get close without weapons. Kyra didn't resist as they locked glowing energy cuffs around her wrists and throat. The cuffs hummed with enough voltage to drop a grizzly bear. On her, they barely registered. She wasn't fighting to survive. She was fighting to find him. And tonight, like 16 nights before, the broker hadn't shown. The arena announcer's voice crackled through speakers too cheerful for a room that smelled like death. Ladies and gentlemen, your undefeated champion. 43 consecutive kills, 0 losses. The untamable Kyra Ashran. Applause finally broke the silence, scattered and uncertain. The crowd wanted blood sport, not efficiency. 4 seconds didn't give them their money's worth. Kyra allowed herself to be dragged through the loading tunnels beneath the arena. Concrete walls pressed close, stained with decades of violence. Overhead lights flickered and buzzed. The handlers kept their distance, despite the chains shock prods held ready. One of them, a kid who couldn't be older than 20, kept his hand on a panic button clipped to his belt. Smart kid. The holding cells were exactly what they sounded like. 10 by 10 concrete boxes with steel doors and surveillance cameras in every corner. Kyra's cell was the last in the row, isolated from the others. Too dangerous to risk proximity to other assets. The handler shoved her inside and slammed the door before she'd fully crossed the threshold. She sat on the metal bench, bolted to the wall, and closed her eyes. Not sleeping, listening. The facility had rhythms, shift changes, feeding schedules, maintenance rounds. She'd memorized them all. In 3 hours, transport trucks would arrive to move fighters to the next venue. Las Vegas, the big auction, lot numbers 50 through 55. Kyra was lot 50, the final lot of the evening, the one nobody wanted to buy anymore. She'd been sold 6 times in 8 years. 6 owners who'd believed they could break her control, turn her into an obedient weapon. 6 men who'd learned the difference between owning something and surviving it. The first owner had lasted 3 weeks. The most recent had made it 11 days before she'd torn through his security detail and painted his estate crimson. After the 6th death, the trafficking network had stopped trying to sell her to private collectors. Too much liability. Too many lawsuits from grieving families who'd lost husbands and sons to a creature they'd been promised was tamed. Now she existed in limbo, too valuable to dispose of, too dangerous to sell, too profitable to set free. The arena fights generated revenue. The auction appearances generated spectacle. And spectacle in the year 2189 was worth its weight in uranium. 3 hours passed like 3 minutes. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, multiple sets, heavy boots, weapons jangling against tactical vests. The cell door opened. Different handlers, this time older men, with 1,000-yard stares of combat veterans who'd seen enough horror that nothing surprised them anymore. They loaded her into an armored transport without a word. The truck's interior was divided into individual cells, each one reinforced with 6 inches of ablative steel. Kyra's cell was at the back, separated from the others by an additional barrier. Through the small viewport, she could see 2 other aliens being loaded. A young male, barely more than a child. An elderly female who moved with the careful slowness of someone in constant pain. The truck rumbled to life and pulled out of the loading bay. Through the viewport, Kyra watched Los Angeles give way to desert highway. Dawn broke across distant mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rust. Colors she remembered from Ashara's twin suns rising over crystal cities that no longer existed. She closed her eyes again, allowed herself one memory, just one before locking it away. Her coronation day. Age 20, barely old enough to understand the weight of the crown they placed on her head. Her father, King Theron, his hand steady as he performed the ritual binding, his voice low and certain as he spoke the ancient words. A queen protects, a queen sacrifices. A queen stands when all others fall. The memory shattered as the truck lurched to a stop. Kara's eyes snapped open. Through the viewport, she could see the auction facility, a converted warehouse on the outskirts of Las Vegas, surrounded by enough security fencing to stop a small army. Spotlights swept the perimeter. Automated turrets tracked movement with machine precision. The handlers unloaded the prisoners in reverse order. The elderly female first, then the young male. Both went quietly broken by years of captivity. When they opened Kyra's cell, she stepped out with her head high and her spine straight. Chains rattled, energy cuffs sparked. The handlers formed a protective square around her weapons-trained center mass. They escorted her through a loading dock that smelled like industrial cleaner and fear. Other aliens were already staged for the evening's auction. Warriors, laborers, specialists of various species. All of them bore the same look in their eyes, the hollow stare of the defeated. Kyra didn't look at them. She looked at the handlers, the security systems, the exit points. Cataloging, planning. She'd escape eventually. She always did. And when she did, she'd burn this place to its foundation and scatter the ashes. The staging area was a concrete room with harsh fluorescent lighting and metal cages arranged in rows. An auction coordinator, a heavy-set human with 3 chins and a tablet grafted to his forearm, directed traffic with the bored efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Lot 47 on. Cage 3, Lot 48, Cage 5, Lot 49, Cage 2. Kyra was directed to Cage 12 at the far end of the room. Isolated, always isolated. The cage door clanged shut behind her. The coordinator made notes on his tablet without looking up. Lot 50, Kyra Ashran, formerly Queen of Ashara, 28 years old, undefeated arena fighter, 6 deceased owners, classified as unsellable, high-risk display only. Display only. That was new. Hours ticked by. Other aliens were processed, cataloged, prepared for presentation. Kyra sat in her cage and watched the machinery of human cruelty operate with assembly line efficiency. She'd seen this before in 17 other facilities across 12 states. The choreography never changed. Only the faces. At 1800 hours, the auction began. Kyra could hear it through the walls, the auctioneer's amplified voice, the murmur of the crowd, the sharp crack of the gavel as lot after lot sold to the highest bidder. Lot 47 went for $300,000. Lot 48 for $120. Lot 49 for $80,000. Then silence. The kind that precedes something terrible. Handlers appeared at Kyra's cage. They opened the door with weapons drawn, and as if the energy cuffs and chains weren't enough. As if anything would ever be enough. She walked through the corridors to the auction stage, boots echoing on polished concrete. The stage itself was circular, raised 3 feet off the floor, surrounded by tiered seating that climbed toward the ceiling. 300 faces stared down at her, warlords, corporate executives, crime lords, representatives from governments that publicly condemned slavery while privately funding it. The auctioneer stood at his podium, a microphone clipped to his collar. He was human, late 50s, with the kind of face that suggested he had spent decades convincing himself that what he did was business, not atrocity. His voice boomed through the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, our final lot of the evening, I present to you Lot 50, Kyra Ashran, the last queen of a world that no longer exists. Polite applause. Nothing more. They already knew her reputation. The auctioneer consulted his notes, playing to the crowd. 6 previous owners, all deceased, 43 arena victories, 0 defeats. She is quite simply the most dangerous acquisition we have ever offered. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Interest, but not the buying kind, the voyeuristic kind. The auctioneer raised his hand. We'll start the bidding at 1 million credits. Do I have 1 million? Silence. 800,000. Nothing. 500,000. A few people shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. The auctioneer's smile began to crack. 200,000. Surely someone. A voice from the back of the room, harsh and dismissive. She's not worth the risk. Let her rot. Laughter. Scattered but genuine. The auctioneer's jaw tightened. He looked at his assistant, who shrugged helplessly. 100,000. Final offer. Kyra scanned the crowd from her position on the stage, not looking at the auctioneer, looking for the face she'd been hunting for 8 years. The broker allegedly attended these events in person, hidden among VIP boxes on the upper levels. She'd never confirmed it, never caught more than shadows and rumors. But tonight, something felt different. Her eyes locked on a figure in the third-tier VIP section, male human face obscured by the angle of the lighting. He sat perfectly still while everyone around him fidgeted and whispered. Stillness in a room full of motion. Kyra's pupils dilated. Her chains rattled as she leaned forward, straining to see more clearly. The auctioneer's voice pulled her attention back. If there are no bids, we'll remove lot 50 from the A. Voice cut through the silence. Old. Tired. Absolutely certain. 75,000. Cash. Every head in the room turned. Kyra's breath caught. In the back row, so far from the stage that most people probably didn't realize the seats went that high, a man stood, human. Late 60s, possibly older. He wore a brown jacket that had seen better decades and boots that might have walked through actual wars. His face was weathered leather creased by sun and time. His eyes were steady. The auctioneer blinked. Sir, this is a display lot. Are you certain you? I said 75,000. Came. I have it here. The old man patted a worn canvas bag slung over his shoulder. The crowd erupted in laughter. Someone shouted from the VIP section, "Old man's buying his own funeral." More laughter. The auctioneer looked genuinely concerned. Sir, I must inform you that this particular asset has a 100% fatality rate among previous owners. We cannot be held liable for, I understand the risks. I'll take her. Kyra stared at him. His face showed no fear, no arrogance, no lust, just bone-deep exhaustion and something else she couldn't identify. Something that looked almost like resignation. The auctioneer glanced at his assistant, who made frantic calculations on a tablet. After a moment, the assistant nodded. The auctioneer raised his gavel. Sold. Lot 50 to the gentleman in the back. Please proceed to processing, for the old man was already moving. He descended the stairs with careful steps, like someone whose knees didn't work as well as they used to, but refused to let that show. He approached the processing desk at the side of the stage and counted out cash in neat stacks. 75,000 in worn bills that smelled like old paper and desperate savings. Kara watched him the entire time, trying to understand. 6 owners had purchased her with bravado and cruelty. This man moved like he was buying vegetables at a market. Methodical, practical, already tired of a transaction that hadn't finished. The auctioneer processed the sale with visible reluctance. Forms were signed, biometric scans verified. The old man received a transfer chip, a small electronic tag that would register Kyra's ownership to his genetic signature. He pocketed it without ceremony. Handlers appeared to escort Kyra off the stage. She descended the steps, chains clinking with each movement. The old man waited at the bottom, his face unreadable. Their eyes met. His were gray-blue like storm clouds over ocean water. Steady, ancient. They'd seen things. Kyra's voice came out low, barely more than a growl. You'll be dead before sunrise. The old man didn't flinch. Probably. But at least I'll have done something right first. The answer struck her like a physical blow. Nobody had ever said that. Not in 8 years. Not once. Handlers transferred Kyra's chains to the old man's custody. He accepted them with the same practiced efficiency he'd used to count his money. No hesitation, no trembling hands. Just an old soldier completing a mission he'd given himself. They walked through the facility's loading dock to the parking area. The old man's vehicle was a pickup truck that looked older than Kyra. Rust spotted the wheel wells. The paint had faded to a color that might once have been blue. The truck bed held nothing but a military surplus canvas tarp and a duffel bag. The old man opened the passenger door. You can ride up front or in back. Your choice. Kyra stared at him. The chains were still active. The energy cuffs still hummed. He had complete control. He could force her anywhere. Instead, he offered choice. She climbed into the passenger seat. The old man closed the door gently and walked around to the driver's side. He settled behind the wheel with a quiet grunt, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot without another word. They drove through Las Vegas as the city lit up for the evening. Neon and holographic advertisements competed for attention. Tourists crowded sidewalks. The truck's radio played something old, a song from decades before Kyra had been born. The old man hummed along, barely audible over the engine noise. Kyra studied his profile. Weathered face, gray hair cut military short, hands scarred and steady on the wheel. A small photo was clipped to the dashboard, a young woman, maybe 20, with dark hair and her father's eyes. Below the photo, a name written in careful script, Rebecca. The old man caught her looking. My daughter, she died 3 years ago. Kara said nothing. The chains clinked softly as she shifted position. The city gave way to desert. Highway stretched empty under stars that Earth's light pollution tried to erase but couldn't quite manage. The truck's headlights carved tunnels through darkness. An hour passed, then another. Finally, Kyra spoke. Why did you buy me? The old man took his time answering. When he did, his voice carried the weight of something rehearsed in his own mind 1,000 times. I didn't plan to. I was at the auction to see what kind of monsters we've become. Then I saw Lot 49, the elderly female. Kyra remembered her careful movements, her defeated eyes. Nobody bid on her. They dragged her off to disposal. And I thought about my mother. She died in an internment camp during the first expansion. Nobody cared. Nobody tried to stop it. He adjusted his grip on the wheel. I saw the list. You were the last lot. If you didn't sell tonight, you'd go to disposal too. So I spent everything I had, my pension, my savings, every dollar I'd put aside for a future I don't believe in anymore. Kara's throat tightened. The answer was too honest, too raw. She'd prepared for cruelty, for ownership, for the power games men played when they thought they controlled something dangerous. She hadn't prepared for truth. You bought me out of pity. No. The old man's voice hardened. I bought you because everyone else in that room saw a monster. I saw someone who deserved better than dying in a disposal chute. The truck pulled off the highway onto a dirt road. Miles of empty desert stretched in every direction. Eventually, a small structure appeared in the headlights, a trailer home, old, but maintained solar panels bolted to the roof. A generator hummed quietly in the darkness. The old man parked and killed the engine. He sat for a moment, hands still on the wheel as if gathering strength for what came next. Then he climbed out and walked to the passenger door. He opened it, reached up, and did something Kyra didn't expect. He unlocked her chains. The energy cuffs powered down with a descending whine. The chains fell away. For the first time in 8 years, nothing bound her. Nothing held her. She could move freely, strike, kill, run. The old man stepped back and gestured to the open desert. Doors unlocked. You want to leave, leave. You want to stay, we'll figure it out. Kara sat frozen. Her muscles screamed at her to act, to take advantage of this impossible opening, to snap his neck and disappear into the night before anyone realized she was gone. But something stopped her. The same thing that had stopped her in the auction hall. The complete absence of fear in his eyes. The bone-deep exhaustion that suggested he genuinely didn't care if she killed him. She stepped out of the truck slowly. Her legs trembled not from weakness, but from the shock of unrestricted movement. The old man walked toward the trailer without looking back, as if he trusted her, as if trust was even possible between a slave and her owner. Kara followed, not because chains forced her, because she didn't understand and she needed to. The trailer's interior was small and immaculately organized, military precision in every detail. A single room serving as kitchen, living area, and sleeping space. Walls covered with photographs, the old man in uniform decades younger. A woman with kind eyes and graying hair. The young woman from the dashboard photo at various ages. Rebecca. More photos. The old man in desert camouflage surrounded by other soldiers. Korean writing visible on a sign in the background. Another photo, same man but older, standing in front of a tank. Insignia on his jacket read U.S. Army Medical Corps, Combat Medic. Kara filed the information away. The old man moved to the small kitchen area and began pulling food from a cabinet. canned soup, bread, simple practical rations. He heated the soup on a portable stove and set 2 bowls on the counter. Not poison, just food. You eat or you don't. Your choice. That word again. Choice. As if she'd ever had it. Kyra remained standing near the door, her body coiled with potential energy. Every instinct screamed danger. Trust was how you died. Trust was weakness. Trust was what had gotten her planet destroyed and her people scattered to slavery across a dozen worlds. The old man ate his soup without waiting for her. He sat on the worn couch bowl balanced on his knee, eating with the mechanical efficiency of someone for whom food was fuel, not pleasure. When he finished, he rinsed the bowl in the tiny sink and set it to dry. I'm going to sleep. You can stay or you can go. There's a blanket in the cabinet if you're cold. He moved to the bed, pushed against the far wall, removed his boots, lay down fully clothed, closed his eyes. Within minutes, his breathing had deepened into sleep. Kara stared at him, at the photos on the walls, at the unlocked door, at the impossible situation she found herself in. She could kill him so easily. One quick movement, he wouldn't even wake up. But Rebecca's face watched from a dozen photographs. Young Rebecca with paint-stained hands, teenage Rebecca in a graduation gown, adult Rebecca holding a medical degree, and in every photo, the same handwritten note in the corner, for Dad who never stopped believing. Kyra's claws extended, retracted, extended again. She moved to the cabinet and found the blanket, sat on the floor in the corner farthest from the bed, wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. The fabric smelled like detergent in years. She watched the old man sleep, waiting for the trap, for the reveal, for the moment when he'd show his true nature. Hours passed. Dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. The old man slept on undisturbed. No nightmares, no fitful movements, just the deep sleep of someone too exhausted to fear death. As morning light crept through the trailer's windows, Kara finally closed her eyes. Not sleeping, just resting, processing. For the first time in 8 years, she wasn't in a cage, wasn't chained, wasn't being forced to fight or perform or kill on command. She was simply sitting in a stranger's home, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like normal life. It terrified her more than any arena ever had. The explosion woke her. Kyra's eyes snapped open, body already moving, before conscious thought caught up. The trailer's windows rattled. Orange light flickered across the walls. She was on her feet, crouched, claws extended, scanning for threats in the half-second it took her mind to register what had happened. The old man was already awake, sitting upright on the bed, reaching for boots with practiced beat. No confusion, no panic, just immediate readiness. His voice came out rough with sleep, but absolutely steady. Henderson Place, 2 miles east. He grabbed a worn canvas bag from under the bed, the same medical kit she'd glimpsed in his truck. Red Cross symbol faded but still visible. He was moving toward the door before Kyra could process the situation. She followed him outside. Dawn painted the desert in shades of rust and amber. 2 miles distant, a column of black smoke climbed toward a sky that was just beginning to remember blue. Flames licked at what remained of another trailer home. Even at this distance, she could hear the roar of the fire. And something else. Screaming. The old man broke into a run. Not the sprint of youth, but the determined lope of someone whose body had learned long ago how to cover ground when it mattered. His medical bag bounced against his hip. He didn't look back to see if Kyra followed. She watched him go, watched this stranger who'd bought her freedom run toward danger without hesitation, without backup, without anything but a 60-year-old medical kit and whatever fool's courage had kept him alive this long. The screaming intensified, a child's voice, high and terrified. Kyra's legs moved before her mind gave permission. She ran, faster than the old man, faster than human physiology allowed. Desert sand kicked up in her wake as she closed the distance in seconds that should have been minutes. The trailer was an inferno. Flames had consumed the structure's front half entirely. Heat rolled off in waves that distorted the air. A man stood outside, human, maybe 40, soot-stained and coughing. A woman knelt beside him, clutching a boy who couldn't be older than 6. Both were sobbing. The man saw Kyra approach, and his face contorted with fresh terror. He grabbed his wife, pulling her and the child back. Away from the monster. Away from the thing that looked like death given form. Kara ignored him. She could see movement through the flames, a small shape behind glass that hadn't shattered yet. Second bedroom. A girl, maybe 8 years old, trapped. The old man arrived breathing hard but moving immediately. He assessed the situation in seconds, the burning structure, the family outside, the child still inside. He moved toward the flames. Kara grabbed his shoulder, stopping him. The heat would kill him before he reached the door. Human flesh wasn't built for this, but hers was. She released him and ran toward the fire. The man screamed something behind her, a warning, a plea. She didn't care. She hit the trailer's odd wall at full speed, shoulder first, and the burning aluminum gave way like paper. Inside, the smoke was thick enough to choke. Heat pressed from every direction. Flames crawled across the ceiling, consuming insulation and wiring. Kyra's eyes adjusted automatically, pupils contracting against the brightness. She could see the girl huddled in the corner of the back bedroom, arms wrapped around her knees, frozen with terror. Kyra crossed the burning space in 3 strides, grabbed the girl. The child screamed and fought instinct, overriding reason. Kyra held her close, shielding her from the flames, and turned back toward the hole she'd created. A support beam groaned overhead, gave way, crashed down across the only exit. Kyra pivoted, calculating. The window. She shifted the girl to one arm, used the other to punch through glass that was already beginning to melt in its frame. Safety glass spiderwebbed and fell away. She climbed through, careful not to let any part of the child touch the superheated edges. Outside air hit like cold water after a desert crossing. The girl coughed and sobbed against Kyra's shoulder. Kyra carried her to where the family stood and set her down. The mother grabbed her daughter, pulled her close, buried her face in the girl's hair, and made sounds that had no words. The father stared at Kyra. His expressions cycled through shock, confusion, gratitude, fear, emotions fighting each other for dominance. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The old man appeared at Kyra's side, medical kit already open. He moved to the girl with professional efficiency, checking her breathing, her pupils, her pulse. His hands were steady despite the run, despite his age, despite everything. She's okay. Some smoke inhalation, but she'll be fine. You got her out in time. He looked at Kyra when he said it, not at the father, at her. The father finally found words. You saved her. You saved Emma. The old man stood, closed his kit. She did. You should thank her. The father looked at Kyra, really looked. His jaw worked. His eyes showed the battle happening behind them. Everything he'd been taught about aliens, about slaves, about things that weren't human, fighting against the reality standing in front of him. Thank you. The words came out like they hurt, like speaking them cost something precious. Kyra said nothing. She turned and walked away from the burning trailer, from the family, from the gratitude that felt more like accusation. The old man followed without comment. They walked back toward his trailer in silence. The sun had fully risen now, painting the desert in harsh light that made everything sharp-edged and unforgiving. Kara's hands trembled, not from exertion, from something else, something she didn't have words for. Behind them, the Henderson family watched them go. The father held his daughter. The mother held his son. Neither called out, neither waved. They'd been saved by a monster, and they didn't know what to do with that. Back at the trailer, the old man filled a basin with water and handed Kyra a towel. You're bleeding, she looked down. Small cuts covered her arms from the broken glass. Nothing serious, already healing. Asheran physiology knitted tissue faster than human doctors could suture. The old man cleaned his own hands, methodically removing soot and ash. When he finished, he poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot that had somehow stayed warm through everything. He handed one to Kyra. She accepted it. The ceramic was warm against her palms. She didn't drink. They'll never see me as anything but what I am. The old man sipped his coffee, looking out the window at the smoke still rising in the distance. No, they won't. Most people can't see past their fear. Then why did you... He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades. Korea, 1951. I was 20 years old, field medic. We'd been fighting for 8 months straight, lost most of our unit. One night we got ambushed. Chinese soldiers. They hit us hard. I got separated from my squad. Ended up in a village bleeding out. He set his coffee cup down carefully. A family found me, grandmother, mother, 3 kids. They had nothing. The war had taken everything. But they hid me, bandaged my wounds, fed me, kept me alive for 2 weeks until I could move again. His eyes found Kyra's. I asked the grandmother why. Why risk everything for an enemy soldier? She said, because seeing someone as human is a choice, and we choose to see you. Kyra's grip tightened on the coffee cup. I'm not human. Neither was their son. He'd been killed by American bombs 3 months before. But they saved me anyway, because humanity isn't a species, it's a decision. The words settled like stones, heavy and permanent. Kyra finally drank the coffee. It was bitter and too hot and tasted like something she'd forgotten existed. Normalcy, the kind of small comfort that had no place in a life built on survival. The old man moved to the counter and began preparing breakfast. Eggs, toast, simple food that required focus and routine. Kyra watched his hands move scarred knuckles, weathered skin, age spots that mapped decades. Hands that had held weapons and scalpels, and apparently enough compassion to make choices that should have killed him. What's your name? He cracked an egg into the pan. William Carter. Most people call me Bill. Bill, the name felt strange in her mouth. Too ordinary for someone who'd just spent his life savings on a slave and then offered her freedom. She gestured at the photographs on the wall, the young woman who appeared in so many of them. Rebecca, your daughter. You said she died. His shoulders tensed. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke quiet and controlled. Car accident. 3 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light. She was coming home from her shift at the hospital. She was a nurse. Wanted to be a doctor like her mother. Kyra watched his hands continue their work. Steady, methodical. Not allowing grief to interfere with the task. The driver survived. Bill nodded, barely. 2 broken legs, collapsed lung. They airlifted him to the same hospital where Rebecca died. I was there, saw him wheel past. Knew who he was. The eggs sizzled in the pan. I followed his case. Went to his arraignment, his trial. I could have done something. Had opportunities. He was transferred to a facility 20 minutes from here. Would have been easy. He plated the eggs, added toast, set everything on the small table. But I didn't. Because Rebecca spent her last 3 months telling me that anger was poison, that revenge was just pain with a target, that the world needed more healing, not more hurt. He finally looked at Kyra, so I'm trying, every day, to be the person she thought I was. Kyra sat at the table. The food smelled real, solid, the kind of meal that came with expectations of normalcy she didn't know how to meet. She ate anyway because her body needed fuel, and because refusing felt like admitting something she wasn't ready to admit. Bill ate in silence. When they finished, he cleared the dishes and checked his watch. I have a shift tonight. Warehouse security, midnight to 8. You can stay here or you can come with me or you can leave. Your choice. That word, again, like he actually meant it, I'll stay. He nodded once, accepting her answer without question. He moved to the bed, set an alarm, and laid down to catch a few hours of sleep before his shift. Within minutes, his breathing had deepened. Kyra remained at the table. The coffee had gone cold, but she held the cup anyway. Outside, the desert stretched endless. Inside, photos of a dead girl watched from the walls. And somewhere in the space between, Kyra tried to understand how she'd gone from hunting her planet's destroyer to sitting in a stranger's home, drinking bad coffee, and feeling something she'd thought she'd burned away years ago. Confusion, the raw, disorienting confusion of not knowing what happened next. She stood and moved to the photographs. Found one of Bill in uniform, young and serious, medic insignia clear on his collar. Another showed him with a woman, his wife presumably. Marie, according to the faded writing on the frame. Dead 6 years now, cancer based on the sympathy cards stacked in a box beneath the photo. Rebecca appeared in most of the later pictures, growing from infant to woman across a timeline of Kodak moments. Birthday parties, graduations, holiday gatherings. In every image, Bill's face showed the same expression. Pride mixed with something gentler. Love that didn't need to announce itself. One photo caught Kyra's attention. Rebecca, maybe 16, holding up a painting. Abstract colors, no clear subject, but enthusiastic. Bill stood beside her, paint smudged on his cheek, laughing. The caption read, Art Therapy Saturday. Rebecca teaches Dad that not everything needs fixing. Kyra's hand trembled as she set the frame down. She'd had that once. Moments when the weight of a crown didn't press so heavy. When she could be Kyra instead of Queen. Her father teaching her the old songs. Her mother showing her the crystal gardens. Her younger brother making her laugh with impressions of the stuffy council members. All gone. Atomized when the invasion fleet had cracked Ashara's core and left nothing but debris. She pushed the memories away. Dangerous territory. The past was a wound that never closed. Better to focus on what could still be done. The broker. Revenge. Purpose. Except Bill's words kept circling. Was a lie you told yourself to survive. She moved to the window. The Henderson place still smoldered in the distance. Emergency responders had arrived. Finally, she could see the lights, hear the faint wail of sirens carried on desert wind. The family was safe. The girl would grow up. Would probably never think about the alien who'd pulled her from the fire. Would remember only the flames, and that was fine. Kyra didn't need gratitude. Didn't want it. Had learned over 8 years that kindness from her was always suspect. Always questioned. Always weighed against her nature and found wanting. But Bill had seen, had acknowledged, had called it what it was. You got her out in time. Not it got her out. Not the alien or the slave or any of the 1,000 dehumanizing terms humans used. Just you. Simple acknowledgement of action and identity. Kara closed her eyes. Exhaustion pulled at her, the deep kind that went beyond physical. The kind that came from carrying weight too long without rest. She returned to her corner. Wrapped herself in the blanket that smelled like normal life. Listened to Bill's steady breathing and the desert's silence, and the distant emergency sirens that would soon fade. For the first time in 8 years, she allowed herself to wonder what it would be like. To have this. Permanently. A place that wasn't a cage. A person who wasn't an owner. A life that resembled living. The thought terrified her more than any arena had, because hoping was dangerous. Hope was how you got hurt when reality inevitably crushed it. Hope was weakness she couldn't afford. But as exhaustion finally dragged her towards sleep, one thought persisted. Maybe, just maybe, this human was different. Kyra jerked awake to the sound of boots on gravel. Her body responded before thought muscles coiled, claws extended ready for violence. The trailer's door remained closed. The sound came from outside. Multiple footsteps, vehicles, professional coordination. Bill woke at the same moment, years of military training overriding the sluggishness of interrupted sleep. He was on his feet, moving to the window with the careful movements of someone who'd done this before. Kyra joined him. 3 black SUVs parked outside. Doors open. Men emerged, 12 of them, maybe more. Professional gear, military-grade weapons, body armor that marked them as serious. Bounty hunters. Bill's jaw tightened. Stay inside, let me handle this. Kara grabbed his arm. They're here for me. You can't handle this. Then we handle it together. The lead hunter approached the trailer. Female, maybe 40. Command presence that came from actual combat, not just training. She knocked 3 sharp raps that said she knew someone was home and didn't care about courtesy. Bill opened the door before she could knock again. Stood in the frame, blocking entry, projecting calm authority, despite being outnumbered and outgunned. Can I help you? The woman smiled. Professional, empty. William Carter. You recently purchased a high-value asset at the Las Vegas auction. We're here to reclaim it. She's not an asset, and she's not going anywhere. The woman's smile didn't change. Mr. Carter, you seem like a reasonable man, so I'll be direct. That alien is worth 10 million credits to our employer. You paid $75,000. We're authorized to offer you $500,000 to walk away. That's a significant profit for less than 12 hours of ownership. Bill didn't hesitate. No, the woman's smile finally faded. Then we'll take her, and you can either step aside or we'll move you. Bill straightened, 68 years old, arthritic knees, blood pressure medication in the cabinet, facing 12 armed professionals. You'll have to move me. Kyra pushed past him before the situation could escalate. She stepped onto the trailer's small porch chains of last night, still absent, standing free and dangerous in morning light. The hunters tensed, weapons came up, safeties clicked off. Kyra raised her hand slowly. Not surrender, just showing she understood the stakes. You want me? I'll come. But he doesn't get hurt. That's the deal. The lead hunter studied her, calculating. No deal. Our orders are clear. Retrieve the asset. Eliminate complications, she gestured. Two hunters moved toward Bill. Kara moved faster. She crossed the distance in a blur of motion that human eyes struggled to track. Her fist connected with the first hunter's jaw hard enough to lift him off his feet. The second raised his weapon. She grabbed the barrel, yanked, twisted. The man's finger broke in the trigger guard. His scream cut short when her elbow caught his temple. Gunfire erupted. Kyra twisted, using the unconscious hunter as a shield. Bullets thudded into Kevlar and flesh that wasn't hers. She threw the body at three more hunters following close behind. Her claws found throats and major arteries. Blood sprayed. Men fell. Bill wasn't idle. He grabbed a weapon from the first fallen hunter training from decades ago, snapping into place. He moved with economical precision, shots carefully placed. Leg shots. Disabling, not killing. The difference between a warrior and a soldier who'd taken oaths. The lead hunter barked orders, trying to coordinate her remaining people. But they'd expected an easy retrieval, expected chains and submission. They hadn't prepared for this for a queen who'd spent 8 years fighting and an old medic who remembered how to make violence efficient. Kyra took 3 rounds to the shoulder, barely slowed. Asheron physiology laughed at small caliber wounds. She reached the leader, grabbed her by the vest, and slammed her against the nearest SUV hard enough to spiderweb the window. The woman gasped, tried to bring her sidearm up. Kyra caught her wrist, applied pressure. Bones ground together. The weapon fell. Kyra leaned close, voice low and absolutely certain. Tell your employer. Tell everyone. I'm not property. I'm not an asset. And anyone who tries to claim otherwise dies. She released the woman who collapsed, clutching her wrist. The other hunters, those still conscious, scrambled for their vehicles. Engines roared to life. Tires kicked up dust as they retreated, leaving 4 unconscious bodies and blood soaking into desert sand. Kara turned to Bill. He stood where she'd left him, weapon lowered, breathing hard but steady. His eyes assessed her wounds, the bullets embedded in her shoulder already being pushed out as tissue regenerated. You're hit. I'll heal. We should move. They'll be back with reinforcements. Kara shook her head. They won't. Not today. I gave them something to think about first. Bill lowered the weapon carefully, set it on the ground, raised his hands where she could see them. Thank you for protecting me. You didn't have to. Kara stared at him, at this human who just fought beside her, who'd taken life to protect hers, despite every oath he'd taken to do no harm, who now stood with hands raised as if she might still be the threat. Why did you help me? Bill lowered his hand slowly. Because you're not property. You said it yourself. I believe you. The words hit harder than bullets. Kyra's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the trailer steps, adrenaline draining away and leaving only exhaustion. Bill moved carefully, giving her space, and sat beside her, not touching, just present. They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher and the bodies slowly cooled, and somewhere in the distance, carrion birds began to circle. Finally, Kyra spoke. I've been looking for someone for 8 years. The man who destroyed my world. The broker. They call him that in the trafficking networks. He orchestrated everything. The invasion, the enslavement, all of it. Bill listened without interrupting. Every owner who bought me, every arena I fought in, I was looking for him. Gathering information. Following threads. I was close. So close. And now, she gestured at the carnage surrounding them. Now they know I'm not playing along anymore. The network will lock down. He'll disappear deeper. I'll never find him. Bill was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, went inside, and returned with a folder. Old paper, physical documents, the kind that couldn't be hacked or traced. He handed it to Kyra. General James Corvin, retired military, corporate executive. The broker. Kyra opened the folder with trembling hands. Photos, documents, service records. And there his face, the man she'd been hunting. The man whose image had burned in her memory every night for 8 years. I know who he is. I've been tracking him for longer than I should probably admit. Since before I bought you. Why Bill's voice went quiet? Because Rebecca was researching him when she died. She was investigating alien trafficking for a documentary. She had evidence, plans to expose the whole network. Then the accident happened. After she died, I found her research. Kept following the threads she'd started. He looked at Kara. He's alive. The death was faked. Corporate assassination cover story. He runs everything from a facility in Arizona. I know where. Kara's hands shook so hard she almost dropped the folder. How long have you known? 2 years, maybe longer. I've been trying to figure out how to stop him. One old man with no resources and no backup. He met her eyes. But now there's two of us. The desert stretched empty in every direction. The sun beat down without mercy. 4 bodies cooled in the sand. And somewhere in Arizona, the man who'd destroyed a world went about his day unaware that 2 broken people had just found each other. Kara stood, looked at Bill, looked at the folder, looked at the endless desert and the infinite sky, and the weight of 8 years that had been crushing her slowly into nothing. Then let's kill him. Bill shook his head. No, let's do something better. Let's expose him, destroy his network, free everyone he's enslaved, make his death mean something instead of just being revenge. Kara wanted to argue, wanted to demand blood, wanted the satisfaction of ending him herself. But Rebecca's face watched from the trailer's windows. A dead girl who'd believed in justice instead of vengeance, who'd tried to expose the truth and died before she could finish. Rebecca would have liked you. Bill's voice was soft. You're trying to do what she couldn't. That matters. That's worth protecting. Kara looked at the folder again, at the man who'd taken everything, at the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was a better ending than the one she'd been planning. She handed the folder back to Bill. Teach me how to do this your way. Bill accepted the folder, nodded once. We start by staying alive. Those hunters will report back. We need to move. He went inside, started packing essentials. Kara watched the horizon, waiting for more vehicles, more violence, more reasons to become what everyone already thought she was. But for now, for this moment, she had a choice. Run alone or fight beside someone who saw her as human even when she wasn't. She picked up the weapon Bill had discarded, checked the magazine, safed it, carried it inside. Where are we going? Bill zipped his bag closed. Somewhere they won't look. I know a place. Old military installation, abandoned since the Cold War. Off every grid. He paused. It's not much, but it's safe. And safe matters when you're planning a war. Kara looked around the trailer one last time, at the photos, at the life Bill had built and was now leaving behind to help someone who'd given him nothing but trouble. Why are you doing this, really? Bill followed her gaze to Rebecca's photos. Because my daughter died believing the world could be better, and I owe it to her to prove she was right. He picked up his medical bag, grabbed his keys, walked to the door. Kara followed him out into the sunlight, into the unknown, into a partnership that made no sense and promised nothing but more violence. But as they climbed into Bill's ancient truck and drove away from the only home he'd known, she felt something shift inside her chest. Something that had been frozen for 8 years starting to thaw. Not hope, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it. The cave system swallowed them whole. Bill's truck sat buried under 3 tons of rubble, its rear bumper, the only part still visible in the dim light, filtering through cracks in the collapsed entrance. Dust hung thick in the air, turning each breath into sandpaper. Emergency flares cast everything in hellish red. Bill lay against the cave wall, skin gray-white, left hand clutching his chest. His breathing came in shallow gasps that whistled through clenched teeth. Kara knelt beside him, hands hovering uselessly over his body. Heart attack. The words felt inadequate for what she was watching. His life draining away because his body had finally decided 68 years was enough. Bill's medications. In the truck. Under rubble. Kara's hands shook. Not from fear of combat or death, those were familiar. This was different. This was helplessness. This was watching someone who'd chosen to see her as human slip away because she couldn't do anything to stop it. Bill's eyes found hers, fighting to focus. Medical kit, left pocket, aspirin. She found the small tin, fumbled it open. 4 tablets. She pressed them into his mouth. He chewed, grimacing at the bitter taste, and swallowed dry. CPR if I stop breathing. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Remember, he taught her during the drive to the cave. Basic field medicine. She'd half listened, too focused on scanning for pursuit. Now every word came back with crystal clarity. You're not going to stop breathing. Bill managed something between a laugh and a cough. Optimism, that's new for you. His eyes rolled back. Consciousness fled. Kara's training, what little Bill had given her, took over. She positioned her hands over his sternum, locked her elbows, started compressions, counting, 30, then mouth to mouth, 2 breaths, watching his chest rise and fall. Repeat. Her hands were too strong. She had to hold back, had to remember human ribs were brittle things that snapped under Aaron's strength. She felt one crack under the 15th compression and forced herself to ease up. Better a broken rib than a stopped heart. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only the rhythm, the desperate attempt to keep blood flowing to a brain that was shutting down. Bill's eyes snapped open. He gasped, jerked, coughed. Alive. Kara sat back, hands trembling, worse than before. Bill's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. Good. You did good. His voice was thread-thin but present. Kyra wanted to scream at him, wanted to rage against human fragility and time, and the cruelty of finding something worth protecting only to watch it break. Instead, she helped him sit up against the cave wall, made sure his breathing stayed steady, waited for her own hands to stop shaking. We need to find a way out. Get you to a hospital. Bill shook his head, the movement careful. Can't. Those hunters have the whole area locked down by now. We go out there, we're dead. Both of us, then what? We find another way. These caves, they're old, and military used them during the Cold War. There should be access tunnels, supply routes. He gestured weakly toward the darkness beyond their small circle of flare light. Find one, I'll rest here. Come back when you know it's safe. Kara stood, grabbed one of the flares. The alternative, leaving him alone while she explored, felt like betrayal. But staying would accomplish nothing. I'll be back. Don't die while I'm gone. Bill's smile was exhausted but real. Do my best. She moved into the darkness, flare held high. The cave system opened up beyond the collapsed ancient limestone carved by water that hadn't flowed here in millennia. Passages branched in multiple directions. She marked her path with torn strips from her shirt, making sure she could find her way back. 20 minutes of exploration brought her to something impossible. A steel door, rusted but intact, set into the cave wall like it belonged there. Military stenciling barely visible under decades of oxidation. Fire base echo. Authorized personnel only. Kara grabbed the handle and pulled. Rusted metal screamed in protest but gave way. The door swung open on hinges that somehow still functioned. Beyond lay a time capsule. A Cold War bunker perfectly preserved by the dry desert air. Emergency lighting flickered to life as she entered, ancient solar panels on the surface still somehow functional. The main room was vast command center, living quarters, armory, medical bay. Everything designed to house a skeleton crew indefinitely in case the worst happened. The medical bay. Kara ran to it, searched cabinets and drawers with desperate efficiency. Most supplies were expired, ancient, but medications could last decades beyond their printed dates in conditions like this. She found nitroglycerin tablets, blood pressure medication, aspirin by the bottle, morphine that might still work. She grabbed everything that looked relevant and ran back through the tunnels following her makeshift trail. Bill was still conscious when she returned, eyes tracking her approach. Found a bunker, 1960s military installation. Still has power, medical supplies. She showed him the medications. Bill's eyes widened, focusing with the clarity of someone who'd just been handed survival. Firebase echo. I trained here. 1965, didn't know it was still intact. He took the nitroglycerin with shaking hands, placed a tablet under his tongue. The effect was almost immediate tension, leaving his face as blood flow improved. Help me up. We need to get to that bunker. Kara supported his weight as they moved through the tunnels. Bill's steps were uncertain, but each one carried more strength than the last. The medications were working. Human chemistry reasserting itself against the betrayal of an aging heart. The bunker's medical bay had examination tables that probably predated Kyra's birth. Bill collapsed onto one with a grunt of relief. Kyra found blankets, military surplus, vacuum sealed, still functional. She covered him while he caught his breath. Need to check for damage. Heart attack at my age could be anything from minor to catastrophic. Kara located an ancient EKG machine. Bill talked her through attaching the leads, reading the results. His voice steady despite the circumstances, falling into the role of teacher because teaching was something he understood. Mild myocardial infarction. Some tissue damage, but nothing catastrophic. I'll live. Might need a pacemaker eventually, but I'll live. He met her eyes. You saved my life. Again, you saved mine first. We're even. Bill's laugh turned into a cough. When he recovered, his expression had shifted. Something harder underneath the exhaustion. We can't run forever. Those hunters were just the advanced team. Corvin will send everything he has, then we go after him first. Bill sat up slowly, testing his limits. That was always the plan, but now we're on a timeline. My heart just announced we don't have the luxury of being careful. Kyra pulled up a chair, straddled it backwards. Then tell me everything. The facility, security, how we get in. Bill closed his eyes, accessing memories from his research. When he spoke, his voice carried the precision of someone who'd studied this problem from every angle. Warehouse complex outside Phoenix, officially listed as agricultural storage, actually a holding facility for 200 Asharan refugees. Corvin keeps them there as leverage. Insurance against any of his slaves getting ideas about rebellion. The words hit Kyra like physical blows. 200. 200 of her people. Alive. Suffering. How long have you known? Bill opened his eyes. 18 months. Found the facility through Rebecca's research. Spent a year confirming. Another 6 months trying to figure out how one old man could possibly make a difference. His hand found hers. But I'm not one old man anymore. Kyra's grip tightened. We get them out. All of them. Then we burn Corvin's empire to ash. Bill nodded. First we rest. Then we plan. Then we execute. Military precision. No cowboy heroics. Kyra stood, started exploring the bunker's armory. Weapons from the 1960s lined the walls. M16s, 1911 pistols, grenades that might still function. She tested actions, checked magazines. Most were still operational. American engineering built to last through nuclear winter. Bill's voice carried from the medical bay. There's training equipment in the back. We have maybe 36 hours before Corvin realizes we're not running. Use them. I'll teach you everything I remember about tactical operations. Kyra found the training area, punching bags, weight equipment, tactical course markers. She turned back to Bill. Why risk this? You could disappear. Take your research to authorities. Let them handle it. Bill sat up, swung his legs off the examination table. Because authorities are bought. Because the system that allows this to exist won't fix itself. Because my daughter died trying to expose this, and I owe it to her to finish the work. He stood, testing his balance. And because you're not just some slave I bought on impulse. You're a queen who lost her kingdom, and kingdoms don't stay lost if their queens refuse to surrender. The words settled into Kyra's chest like stones building a foundation she thought was demolished forever. Teach me. Everything. Make me better than I am. Bill moved to the armory, selected weapons with the careful consideration of someone who understood tools of violence. We start with basics. You have strength and speed. Now you need strategy, precision. The difference between a warrior and a soldier. They spent the next 30 hours in the bunker's depths. Bill taught, Kyra learned, hand signals, flanking maneuvers, room clearing, field medicine beyond basic CPR, how to disable instead of kill, how to use environment as weapon, how to think 3 moves ahead. Bill's age showed in every lesson, but his knowledge was bottomless. 68 years of accumulated experience poured into crash course format. He pushed through exhaustion and pain, driven by the timeline his heart had imposed. Kyra absorbed everything. Her body already knew violence. 8 years of arena combat had taught her that. But this was different. This was violence with purpose. Violence with rules. Violence that served something larger than survival. During breaks, they refined the plan. Bill had blueprints of the Phoenix facility, Rebecca's research meticulous and comprehensive. They identified entry points, security stations, optimal paths to the holding cells. Bill made Kyra memorize every detail until she could navigate the complex blind. On the second night, Bill's phone, miraculously still functional, received a message. Unknown number. Bill opened it, face hardening. Video file. Kyra watched over his shoulder. The screen showed 200 Asheron prisoners in cages, emaciated and broken. A man's voice narrated, Mr. Carter, Kyra, I know you're alive. I know you're planning something. So here's my offer. Kyra surrenders in 24 hours, or I start executing these refugees. One every hour. Your move. The video ended. Bill's hands trembled with rage rather than medical fragility. Corvin, he's drawing us out. Kara's voice came out absolutely calm. Then we go. Now, we don't wait for his deadline. It's a trap, obviously. But 200 of my people die if we don't spring it. Bill set the phone down carefully. Then we make it our trap instead of his. They geared up in silence. Weapons checked, magazines loaded, body armor from the bunker's supplies, ancient but functional. Bill moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this before, in wars Kyra hadn't been born to witness. Bill swallowed another nitroglycerin tablet, chasing it with a stimulant from the bunker's medical supplies. Not recommended, probably dangerous, but dying later from heart complications was preferable to dying now from inaction. The medications would buy him 48 hours of functionality. After that, he'd need real medical intervention. He caught Kyra watching him, concern evident, despite her efforts to hide it. I'm fine for now. Ask me again when this is over. As they prepared to leave, Bill stopped, turned to her. If this goes wrong, if I don't make it out, the research, everything Rebecca found, it's backed up in 3 locations. Addresses in the folder. Promise me you'll finish this even if I can't. Kyra met his eyes. We both make it out. That's the plan. Plans change, promise me. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on better outcomes. But his expression demanded truth. I promise. Bill nodded, satisfied. They moved through the bunker's exit tunnel, a shaft that led to the surface a mile from the cave collapse. Desert night greeted them, stars brilliant in air, unpolluted by city lights. Bill's truck was gone, but the bunker had yielded an alternative. A military jeep, ancient but maintained, apparently kept functional by the same solar arrays that powered the facility. Bill drove. Kyra navigated. 3 hours to Phoenix. 3 hours to prepare mentally for what came next. They arrived at the warehouse complex as false dawn painted the eastern sky. The facility sprawled across 5 acres, surrounded by chain link and razor wire. Guard towers at each corner, patrol patterns Bill had memorized from surveillance footage. They parked a mile out and covered the remaining distance on foot. Bill moved well for someone who'd had a heart attack 36 hours ago. Medication and stubbornness in equal measure. At the fence line, Bill produced wire cutters. They slipped through during a gap in patrol coverage and crossed open ground to the main building. So far exactly as planned. Then alarms shrieked. Spotlights erupted across the compound. Guard towers opened fire. Bill grabbed Kyra, pulling her behind a cargo container as bullets sparked off metal. They knew we were coming. Bill's voice was grim but unsurprised. Corvin's smarter than we hoped. Kyra assessed their position. Pinned down, 50 yards from the building entrance. Guards converging from 3 directions. We need a diversion. Bill pulled something from his pack. A grenade, Vietnam era. No guarantee it still functioned. Cover your ears. He threw it toward the western guard tower. 5 seconds of nothing. Then the tower erupted in flame and shrapnel. Ancient ordnance proving American manufacturing standards. The explosion drew guards like moths to fire. Bill and Kyra used the chaos to sprint for the building. They hit the door together, Kyra's shoulder taking it off its hinges. Inside was industrial space converted to prison. Cages lined the walls. And in those cages, Asheron faces. Dozens of them. Gaunt. Broken. But alive. One face in particular made Kyra's breath catch. A young girl, maybe 10, with silver hair like her own. The girl's eyes widened. Queen Kyra, is that really you? The words rippled through the cages. Other Asherons stirred, chains rattling as they pressed against bars. My queen. Our queen. You came for us. Kyra wanted to tell them she was no queen anymore. That crowns meant nothing when your kingdom was ash. But the hope in their eyes demanded better. Stand back from the doors. She tore through locks with bare hands, Asheron's strength channeled into liberation instead of violence. Bill covered the entrance, controlled bursts, keeping guards at bay. His aim was surgical leg shots, arm shots, disabling rather than killing. The cages opened. 200 Asherons stumbled free, many too weak to walk unassisted. The young girl, the one who'd recognized Kyra, remained close. I'm Lyra. My mother told me stories about you, said you'd come back, said queens never abandon their people. Kyra knelt to Lyra's level. Your mother was wiser than I deserved. Can you walk? Lyra nodded. Then help the others. We're leaving. All of us. Bill's voice cut through the moment. We've got company, big company. The warehouse's far door burst open. 20 soldiers in full tactical gear poured through and behind them, a man in an armored exosuit, enhanced strength, military tech, and a face Kyra had memorized from 8 years of hunting. General James Corvin, the broker. His voice boomed through suit speakers. How touching. The lost queen and the broken soldier. Did you really think you could just walk in here? Kyra stepped forward, placing herself between Corvin and the freed Asherans. We're walking out. You can let us or you can bleed, trying to stop us. Corvin laughed, the sound distorted by technology. You're not leaving. You're dying, all of you, starting with the old man. He raised an arm. Weapon systems whined as they charged. Targeting lasers found Bill's chest. Time fractured into slow-motion clarity. Kyra saw the weapon fire. Saw Bill dive. Saw the explosive round hit the wall where he'd been standing. Saw Bill roll come up, firing 3 shots that sparked off Corvin's armor without penetrating. Then Corvin backhanded Bill with the exosuit's enhanced strength. Bill flew, hit the wall with a sound like breaking boards. Slid down. Didn't move. Something inside Kyra shattered. Not broke. Transformed. The part of her that had been trying to be human, to be measured, to follow Bill's rules about minimizing harm, it evaporated. What remained was older. Colder. The part forged in blood pits and arena combat and 8 years of survival. She was across the distance before Corvin could track her movement. Her fist caught his helmet hard enough to crack the faceplate. He staggered. She pressed the advantage. Claws found seams in the armor. Peeled technology away from flesh. Corvin roared, trying to grapple her. The exosuit was strong, but Kyra was stronger. Fueled by rage and purpose, and the image of Bill crumpled against a wall, she tore the suit's right arm off at the shoulder joint. Corvin screamed. His left hand found a knife. He stabbed up, catching Kyra in the ribs. The blade scraped bone. She didn't feel it, or felt it and didn't care. She grabbed his throat through the broken helmet, lifted him off his feet, slammed him down hard enough to crater concrete. His soldiers opened fire, rounds stitched across Kyra's back. She ignored them, focused only on the man beneath her claws, the man who'd destroyed her world, who'd enslaved her people, who'd hurt Bill. Kill him. The thought was thunder. End it. Finish this. Her claws pressed into Corvin's throat. One squeeze, that's all it would take. Kyra. Bill's voice, weak, but present. Don't. She looked up. Bill had managed to sit back against the wall, blood running from a scalp wound. His eyes found hers across the chaos. Don't become what he made you. Please. Kyra's claws trembled. Everything in her screamed for violence, for the satisfaction of revenge, for the closure of ending the man who'd taken everything. But Bill was watching, and Lyra, and 200 Asherans who needed to believe their queen was more than just another killer. She retracted her claws, stood, left Corvin gasping on the ground. The young girl, Lyra, stepped forward, held up a small recording device. We got everything, every confession, every order, all of it. Kyra turned. Every freed Asheran held a similar device. 200 cameras, 200 recordings. Bill's smile was bloody but genuine. Taught them that while you were busy fighting. Evidence. Better than revenge. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real authorities this time, FBI, based on the helicopter markings becoming visible through the warehouse's roof hatches. Bill's final contingency. A call placed before they'd entered, giving authorities the location and evidence uploads. Federal agents swarmed the building, secured Corvin, tended to the injured. An agent Kyra recognized from the photos in Bill's trailer, Rodriguez, the one whose father Bill had saved, approached. Bill Carter. You stubborn old bastard. When you called this in, I thought you were insane. Bill managed to stand with Kyra's help. Maybe, but I was right. Rodriguez looked at the freed usherons, at Corbin in restraints, at the evidence being cataloged. Yeah, you were. The aftermath blurred into bureaucracy, medical treatment, statements, legal processes. Kyra stood through all of it numb, watching humans categorize and document the end of an empire built on suffering. Bill received treatment for 3 broken ribs and a concussion. He insisted on refusing hospitalization until every Asheron had been processed and assigned temporary housing. Stubborn to the last. 6 months later, Kyra stood on the porch of what had been Bill's trailer and was now something more. A Shura house. Sanctuary. Home to 50 Assurans who'd chosen to stay near the human who'd helped free them. More were scattered across the country, the government's resettlement program moving with unexpected efficiency. The Alien Rights Act had passed Congress 3 months after Corbin's arrest, propelled by public outrage at the evidence recordings. Bill emerged from inside moving slower than before, but moving. The pacemaker surgeons had installed worked perfectly. Gave him another decade, maybe 2, if he was careful. Lyra followed him chattering about her English lessons in the garden she was planting. The girl had attached herself to Bill like a shadow, following him everywhere, calling him Dad, with the casual certainty of chosen family. She'd started calling Kyra Mom last week. Kyra still didn't know how to respond to that. Bill settled into his chair with a grunt, looked out at the desert painted gold by sunset. Lyra ran off to show the other children something she'd found. You did good. All of this. Bill's gesture encompassed the expanded trailer, the gardens, the children playing between buildings. Kyra sat beside him. We did good. Both of us. Silence settled, comfortable and earned. After a while, Bill spoke. Rebecca would have liked you. Would have liked all of this. I wish I could have met her. Me too. Lyra ran back, breathless with excitement. Mom, Dad, dinner's ready. Come inside. She grabbed Kyra's hand, then Bill's, pulled them both toward the trailer where other Asherans had prepared a feast from vegetables grown in desert soil that shouldn't support life but did anyway. Kyra looked at her hand in Lyra's. At Bill, smiling, at the home they'd built from ashes and stubbornness, and the refusal to let cruelty have the final word. She was no longer Queen of Ashara. That crown was dust. But maybe possibly she was something better. She was free.